Okay, you know when we're on. Good morning. Welcome to Lapeer Community Church Online. We have pretty much nobody here today because of the weather, but it's also like the first time we ever got to start on time because nobody's late. But it's one of the advantages of being able to do an online service is it's convenient. The roads were pretty bad. It was hard. It's always hard to make the call on whether we should cancel the service or not. You know, because you have to make it early enough because the musicians come early, and you don't want to do that and then cancel the service. It's just really hard. So we decided to cancel. It makes it easier though because we have the live service. So if you are joining us this morning from out there, say hi. I think you can comment down there, right, Mike? They can comment. Yeah, you make comments. Say hi to one another on your YouTube link there. Melissa is sending a link out for some that haven't probably known where to go because they're not usually online. And but I want to welcome you this morning. This is also the beginning of Christmas season now that Thanksgiving's done. And we look forward to singing Christmas carols and Christmas songs, Christmas hymns. And so I'm only going to do one this morning. I'm going to do Joy to the World. If you want to sing with me, sing loud. If you want me to hear you, you have to sing really, really loud this morning, right? So anyway, Joy to the World. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. No more let sins and sorrows grow, nor thorns infest the ground. He comes to make his blessings flow, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found, far as the curse is found. He rules the world with truth and grace, and makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love, and wonders of his love. Good morning. We are continuing in the book of John for right now. We are in John chapter 13. And so John chapter 12, 11, we finished up with Lazarus raising him from the dead. And then there was a meal that was hosted in Jesus' name, and now we're at another meal. And when we hit chapter chapter 13, we are in the last 24 hours of Jesus' life because they have this meal and then he's betrayed. He goes to the garden to pray. He's betrayed. Then they go through the 2 trials and then he's crucified. So this is like just a quick, approximately 24-hour period where there are 7 chapters dealing with this 1 hour, which is pretty incredible when you think about the rest of the book covers 3 years, and this covers 1 hour. So as we head into the last hour of Jesus' life, if you have your Bibles, or you can look on the screen, I believe Mike's going to go ahead and post the verses up on the screen. Oh, and by the way, we're going to put a new screen up here soon. You're going to notice a TV screen instead of a projection screen. We're getting rid of the projectors and going to a digital TV. It's going to look smaller, but it'll actually be, the projection size will be the same. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But as you look at the lyrics here, just left the music. The Bible here, John chapter 12, starting in verse 1. It was just before the Passover festival, and Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world. He loved them to the end. Now, love becomes a real pressing theme all the way through these 7 chapters. Like love, the word agape for love here is used only 7 times in the rest of the book, but this last 7 chapters is used over 30 times. And it really does focus on God's love for us, Jesus' love for his disciples and for those who claim his name. And he says also that the hour had come. The rest of the time he had always said his hour has not come, all the way through this book. And now all of a sudden it switches and says his hour has come. Verse 2, the evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all these things under his power, and he had come from God and was returning to God. So he knows that Judas is going to betray him before he actually washes the disciples' feet. And he's washing Judas's feet here. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who has said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," Peter said, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who had a bath need only to wash their feet. The whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." Obviously, he's focusing on Judas here, for he knew, verse 11, he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. So Jesus switches from reality that Peter doesn't need to have more than his feet washed because the rest of his body is clean, and he switches that to a metaphor really quickly and says, "You are clean, except one of you," not all of you. One of you is going to betray him, that's Judas, and no matter how many times he washes his feet, it's not going to change what's inside of him. He is not clean. So he switches from the reality to Peter, but then he switches when he's talking about Judas, he's talking about it as a metaphor. All right? And then, verse 12, he says, when he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "You understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. But now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you are blessed if you do them." So I'm going to look at some of these passages here as we back up. So foot washing in the ancient world in Palestine, because they're wearing sandals, they're walking in dirt, and they're walking not only in dirt, but also there are no latrines, there's no indoor plumbing. They're throwing all the human waste and animal waste into the streets of Jerusalem. And so they literally are walking in this stuff. And so when they go into somebody's house, their feet aren't just dirty, they're disgusting. And so it is very common practice when you go into somebody's house that there would be a servant that would wash your feet before you ate. Now, as I explained in another service, that they would be laying down. We sit at a table in chairs, but they didn't. They actually laid down on a platform that was raised up from the floor. and they would be laying down. There would be cushions and pillows that they could rest on, and they would be lying down with their heads all facing the center of a semicircle and their feet all on the outside. So when Jesus disrobes, he takes off his robe and he wears a towel, and he goes around and washes their feet from the outside. Now, what's unusual about this is that the person that would usually do this would be normally a young female slave. And so, but Jesus actually dresses the part as a slave as well. When he takes off his outer garment and puts on a towel, that's what the slaves would wear. So he isn't just doing a slave task, he's actually dressing and portraying himself as a slave. Now, it is interesting that he does this because he's expecting everyone else to treat themselves as slave, but it's more than that. So what he does is he goes and does this, and when he does it, he does this to Judas, which this is an act of humility, is what it is. It's an act of humility, which is not something that is really that common. And so when he does this, he's going around playing the role of a slave. And Judas, the one who's going to betray him, he washes his feet. Now, a lot of times with somebody who betrays us or somebody hurts us deeply, we might say we forgive them, but we ignore them. And I understand that. Sometimes I'm just not going to get hurt. But Jesus, actually knowing he's going to get hurt, washes the feet of Judas. So he does this. He lowers himself below the status of the disciples, including Judas, and washes his feet. So there is no animosity from him towards Judas, even though he knows that Judas is going to betray him. And so he washes their feet. And so as we talk about this, this idea of foot washing here, because he says to go to do what he's doing. And there are some denominations, some churches, that treat foot washing like communion and baptism. It's an ordinance to them. And we don't. So the question is why? And it looks like it. I mean, Jesus says, when you look at what he says, do you know what I've done for you? He says, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that's what I am. But now that I, your teacher and Lord, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. So then why don't we wash each other's feet? Well, you could look at the passage, and if churches do that, I would have no issues with it that they do that. But at the same time, in that time, foot washing was a common practice. It wasn't something that people would go like, what are you doing with my feet? They would know, because this was normal. In our culture, and all cultures in the world right now, I think, this is not normal. And so Jesus is telling them, it's not about washing the feet. This is what I would believe. It's not about washing someone's feet. It's lowering yourself to a position that's beneath you. That nothing, no task, no person is worth less than you. That there's no job, no community, there's no person that I should see that I'm better than them. That's where Jesus is doing that, even though he is. He's taking on the role of the lowest strata in the community and acting out an extreme act of humility. And so if I were to decide to wash everybody's feet in the church or something, not only would people think that's weird, looking at myself, and I'm back on, but it's delayed on here. So I'm going to go ahead and start trying to continue to teach. So where I left off on was that on the foot washing, why we don't wash as a church. When we wash somebody's feet, it doesn't do the same thing. Jesus was displaying humility, is that he's greater than everybody in the room, and yet he's acting like someone who's the least in the room, a slave girl. And so he's saying we should act that way. And washing feet doesn't actually cause us to become least in the room. It just makes us odd. And so that's why we wouldn't necessarily wash feet. But it is worth trying to figure out how. I got a text from Melissa to see, are we on? We see you. Yep. Okay. And I'm hearing myself. I got to cut myself off here. Anyway, as we continue talking about this, as we're looking at foot washing, looking at humility, the thing we should ask is, what is an equivalent in our culture? What are the equivalents of lowering yourself to some degree? And there might be some things it's kind of hard to think about, but all you have to do is really start thinking about, who do you really think is less than you? And a lot of times we tell ourselves, oh, I'm not better than anybody. But we actually do. We're just really not very good at being honest with ourselves. We look at the way some homes people live in and judge them as not as valuable as you, or some jobs people hold that they're not as good as you. Or we might actually have a whole lot of pride saying, look, I was raised in poverty, but I raised myself up by working hard, getting an education, or whatever you did to get to the place where you are. But sometimes we don't recognize some of the advantages we have, and we take credit for them. So, you're able to go to college. Why were you able to go to college? Or you were able to get a decent job. There are some people that can't. Some people have mental health issues. It is interesting that we look at the poor in society as the thing that's ruining our country, and Jesus never asked us to blame the poor for all our problems. But we just think they should all get jobs. Well, they have mental health issues that you don't have to deal with. They have histories you don't have to deal with. There's circumstances that you don't know what they are, but we think that they're just not worthy of help. And the problem with that, then we get into what Peter was doing. When Jesus came to Peter and said, you're not going to wash my feet, Jesus said, yes, I am, or you're out. So he's like, okay, I'm all in. Wash my whole body then. And Jesus says to Peter, you don't need to have your whole body washed. You just need to have your feet washed by someone like me who's displaying what it means to be a humble leader, that I'm going to wash your feet because I'm going to take on the role of a servant, that being a servant is not beneath you. Now, Jesus actually, beyond that, if you look at Philippians chapter 2, 5 through 7, Paul talks about Jesus taking on the image of a slave in Philippians, where he says, in your relationships with one another, this drops all the way down to verse 5. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who's being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking on the very nature of a slave, being made in human likeness. That's what he did. He literally left a place where they're the most elite beings in the universe. He's God, right? And he leaves God to become a man. Now that would be like you deciding to give up your home, your culture, everything else, find the poorest people on the planet, sell everything you have, give it all away, and be just as poor as them, and live with them. Move to that country, and not many of us be willing to. Where he came from. And so he's demonstrating what he did in an act of washing their feet, which is normally beneath. All of those men would never have normally done that. And so he's saying you need to be able to do these base menial things for other people, just so that you put yourself in a place, you remember your place, that the greatest amongst you will be your servant, is what Jesus says. If you want to be great, the greatest is the slaves. Those are the great ones. Now, Peter, being unwilling to do this, exposes an attitude that he is better than the slaves by refusing Jesus' help from him playing the role of a slave. And this is how it works. So he's like, well, give the but willing to. What did I say last in yours? Okay. Right. Can you tell if I'm on? My head goes down, I'm stuck right there. My head is up, and it's not. I can't hear. All right, if I'm back. Let's go back to Peter. Again, what I'm saying is if you're willing, I'll go back. If, like Peter, refuses the help, a lot of times we can refuse to have somebody give us something because we think we're beneath that. We should be better than that. When you give, you think they're beneath you because they should accept the gift because it's okay for them because they are less than you who can't receive because you're too good for that. Now, I have experienced this myself. When Mindy and I first came to start the church, we planted the church. We did receive a lot of help. But there came a time when we were actually really struggling. We started the church in May. Our team was kind of like not getting along with each other. There's a lot of anger and frustration about how well the church was doing. And Kensington Community Church sent a couple of leaders up to check us out. We had a really terrible service. And they ate lunch with us, where a lot of people complained about how well we were doing, or how badly we were really doing. But then what they did was they decided they were going to help us out. They were going to get us a trailer and get us all of the cabinets that would roll on the trailer to store all of our equipment. That would make it easier. We had a trailer we were borrowing from a church, and we had a limited time where we could borrow it. We had all our stuff in there in a pile, like all of our electronic equipment, our soundboard, everything. It was going to be destroyed if we kept doing this. We didn't have any other options. And so Kensington contacted Portable Church, and they were going to pay for all of our equipment. The denomination that we are part of actually bought the trailer. It was Southern Baptist. They actually bought the trailer. And then all of a sudden, I had a fear come over me that we weren't going to make it. There was a good chance we weren't going to survive, and all that money would be wasted. So I called up the man that, Gary Foran, said, we're not going to take the money. I had actually already called Portable church. I said, take everything off the list that you haven't already ordered or started, and don't get those. I'll just pay for what you've already started, because I didn't feel like it was right to back out altogether. And I was going to cash in what was left of my retirement mutual funds from teaching school and pay for it myself. And then I called Gary Forn and I said, we're not going to accept it. And he said, yes, you are. And I was like, I can't. You know, he says, no, you're going to, because you need it, and we have it, and we're giving it to you. And I felt so much shame, because I was afraid that I was going to be a failure and I will have wasted their money. And if it was a failure and I wasted my own money, I would have felt less shame. But if I wasted a whole other church's money, $20,000, it was more than I can handle. And they only paid for what I ordered, because I had cut the order way down. It was going to be more than that. But they paid for it. It made all the difference in the world, and we made it. But what I did was expose myself. It's like I felt like I should be able to succeed without, if I was going to, I only deserved the money if I was going to succeed. That it wasn't their decision to give the money, it was mine, but it was actually theirs. The giving is in the power of the giver. Like when God decides to give you eternal life, it's his power to do that, not yours. And so it is, you know, we might refuse, but he has the power to give. He has the power, he has the ability to say that you're worth this. And so I was thinking I wasn't worth it. But I would give to others. I would think it was okay for them to give to other churches, you know, but not me. And so it exposes this thing that I was being like Peter. Like, you can't do this for me. Like, you shouldn't do this for me. Like, I should be able to make this work on my own. And if I don't, shame on me. But I felt I was better than that. And they did help, and we did make it. And we started growing, and things started going well. And then I wanted to take all the credit and think we were here because of me. It wasn't because of me. It was because God orchestrated a lot of things I had no control over. And in spite of all the things I did terribly, he still wanted Lapeer Community Church to succeed for some reason, and we did. But what I want you to do is think about the times where you don't think that you are worth sacrificing for, whether you're not, because that attitude affects the way you give. And when you give to other people, you actually make them feel less than you, because in your heart somewhere you think they are worthy of it because they're less than you, and you're not, so you're better than them. So the giver actually comes out not that looking that good, because they can sense when people think. When the least of these receive our gifts, and you're acting like you're doing something wonderful because it makes you feel good, what you're doing is making them feel worthless. And it's a difficult thing to overcome, but it is something you should pay attention to. If, you know, Peter, like, he could have been out if he would have held his position. He would have rejected everything that Jesus wanted to give him just because he was too good to have his feet washed by Jesus. And so we need to have this attitude of humility that Jesus had. That's more what washing the feet was about. It was an attitude of humility, a lifestyle of humility that is not embraced by our current culture. Our culture embraces achievement, knowledge, looks, ability. And those without ability, achievements, resources, the least of these, we actually look down on. And then when there are ills in the community, we tend to blame them for the problems that we have. It's upside down. We need to see the least of these as the greatest, that you need to be more like them. Because they actually live humbly. We don't. And so humility should be the commonality amongst all Christians. That we love one another, that we see each other as equals, no matter what station, what you have, nothing. Whatever your abilities are doesn't matter. It's all that we are created in God's image and worth dying for. And if he says they're worth dying for, then they're worth us sacrificing for. And then we're also worth other people sacrificing for us. Humility needs to be a greater priority for all of us. We need to admit, not that we'll admit, well, I'm not perfect. Well, that even says, like, I'm close. You're saying I'm good. When you say I'm not perfect, you're basically saying I'm pretty good, I'm just not perfect. Well, the reality, you're so far from perfect. If you could see it, then we could be humbled. Actually, the fastest road, I heard a pastor say this one, the fastest road to humility is humiliation. We avoid it like the plague. But in reality, we should be pursuing humility. But what we have, we don't deserve. But what we make of ourselves is God put us in a position to do the things with our life that he has. Everything we have, everything we can do, every ability we have, every talent we have, all of the education we have, the place that we live, is all been given to us. We might have advantages that we don't deserve them. And if we can see it that way, maybe we can actually make a better difference in our community by loving them and being more humble. Pray with me. Father in heaven, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for giving us the ability to live stream, even though it may not be perfect this morning. It's less than perfect, but we thank you for the ability to do it anyway. Pray, Lord, that these words would move and touch the hearts of people, that we all might learn from them, and you would place in our heart a desire to live humbly and love the humble. In Jesus' name. Just a few announcements before we go. Not that I'm going to be able to figure out all of them, but some of these here in the bulletin. The bulletin will be online. But we have a special Christmas offering. We do this every year. This year it is to pay off the building, and the rest of it is going to go to the Crisis Pregnancy Center. And so that is, 10% is going to the Crisis Pregnancy Center. We are just $7,732 away from paying off the building. Many of you had made decisions to give, and you could say, well, it doesn't look like it's needed. It is actually, because when we pay the building off, the resources that go into the building are now going to go into a fund that's going to help us hire another associate pastor to expand our ministry and do more outreach. I'll be looking forward to having another associate pastor when we can afford one. Well, this will help us afford one by not having the payment on the building. And then if you were planning on giving, don't think that we don't need it now. We do, because we need to create the funds to make sure we can adequately pay for some help. All right? The refuge is going to continue tonight. If you can come this afternoon at like 4 o'clock to help set up, because we've got beds to set up and everything else, the building. If you have things that you need to drop off, food, you can drop those off at 6. But we could use some help at 4 o'clock to come help set up. So if you're able, we would really appreciate it. And then also pay attention to the bulletin at the upcoming services. We do have a Christmas Eve service coming up on December 24th at 5 o'clock. So mark that on your calendars. And then the chili potluck is December 28th after the service. So I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and we will see you hopefully we'll be snow-free and back here next week. Thank you. Done?